Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashlie Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
Welcome back, everyone. The Christmas season is upon us, and with that comes one of my favorite parts of the holiday season. The music. Today on the podcast, Gilbert and I sit down with Dr. Jeff Held, Assistant Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences here at Concordia Irvine, and Director of the Arts Activities, including the orchestras. Jeff is an accomplished musician and professor, earning a Doctor of Musical Arts degree from Boston University.
That's right, Ashley. Over the years, he's also taken on more leadership roles, both within the arts and the university system as a whole. Listen in as Jeff talks about leadership strategies, not only for musicians, but for many areas of leadership. Working in a high-pressure environment, he talks about how to stay grounded and focused on performing at a high level, and the blessing of being able to serve God through the gift of music. Also, be sure to check your local PBS listings for the Concordia Christmas Special, Come and See, which airs soon. In the meantime, you can also watch and listen to Concordia Christmas Specials from years past. Now it's time, so let's get started.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Townsend Institute podcast series. Gilbert and I are excited today to be meeting with our friend and colleague, Dr. Jeff Held. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you today.
Well, we are excited for you to be here. We know that this is a busy time. All the time is probably busy in your role here at Concordia, but heading into the holiday season and a lot more productions and performances and things like that, I know really fill your schedule. So thanks for making the time to tell us a little bit more about your role here as you lead so many of our musical programs. Talk a little bit about your journey that brought you to this place at this time.
Well, I'm starting my 20th year here at Concordia, and I was a high school director for 9 before then. And speaking specifically to leadership, when I started as a band director at Orange Lutheran High School back in the day, I think about my first day on the job, I got pulled in the principal's office and he said, "Hey, there's you and a choir director, and the choir director is only here for 1 year on a temporary contract. That makes you a department chair." I'm like, all right, great. So, first year teacher, I hadn't even done all the music education classes. I was a music major and a humanities minor in college, more versatile type of major. And all of a sudden I was in all these leadership meetings, and that was wonderful. I learned so much helping to develop the program there at the high school. And I think one of the philosophies I had, unstated philosophy, but now that you look back, value added's a big thing. Is it enough just to have a concert once in a while with the band and you pull some music together and bring the parents in? Or do you turn it into a more intentional season of events, and you bring guest artists in, and you have different pedagogical ways of approaching kids with private lessons outside of school and recitals in school, all of this kind of thing. And I found that by the time I ended up transitioning over to Concordia, there were a lot of things I was doing that prepared me to be a college teacher then. And at Concordia, a few years in, I got pulled into some different leadership roles, which led to my assistant dean job right now. And it all had to do with some of the extra things. Going the extra mile with recruiting was a big thing that kind of started me getting put into different roles. Organizing not just the wind orchestra, but founding the symphony orchestra and dealing with all that goes with that. And so, I think there's a there's definitely a snowball effect with leadership that's really interesting. And I would say too that there's some experiences I had outside of my immediate professional world that were very influential for me to become a seasoned leader. When I was young, there was major controversy at our townhome HOA, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll run for the board." Next thing you know, I'm appointed president over this extremely controversial legal liability world. It was just an incendiary environment at the time. And I learned how to calm things down and let neighbors be neighbors again. And that was really, really valuable. And I learned some great skills there. I learned how to be cussed at every day on discussion boards and
Oh,
not
yeah.
get too upset about it. And
Could you walk
things like
around in your
that go a long way. I don't get cussed at here, fortunately.
Yeah.
But you learn how to get kind of thick skin and
Yeah.
to deal with criticism, which is really important to do. And
could you walk around your own neighborhood, Jeff? I mean, or did people cuss at you then?
Did you have to move?
Yeah.
I gotta say, the old ladies loved me,
Uh,
and the guy that was previously shilling money out of the HOA, he didn't, but he eventually moved away
Oh.
after threatening to punch one of the old ladies in my
oh,
own
good
house when we were
gracious.
having a meeting. So
Oh my God. Well,
I
hey,
guess
you
that's
know
a
what?
whole other podcast.
You talk about the snowball effect of leadership, and that's very true. As
Yeah.
someone who has a little bit of experience with HOAs, if you can help run an HOA, I mean, you can do anything.
You know, Jeff, I mean, when I think about your role, right? I mean, you're up there directing. I think it's usually pretty high pressure. I mean, everybody's in there. They're there for a concert. It's all eyes on you. You're up there doing the stuff. And I mean, you're at Segerstrom, you're at, and see all these different places. How do you balance, individual musicianship or whatever, with the collective vision of what the whole group is doing?
I do have a pretty high responsibility to know the music. The biggest thing on my mind right now, we have a big concert on Saturday. That'll be one of the best attended concerts in all of Orange County up at the Nixon Library. But
Mm.
that's not terribly hard music. I'm barely thinking about that right now. Now I'll give it a lot of thought tonight at rehearsal and tomorrow. But I've spent the week studying Beethoven because we're doing Beethoven's Third Symphony in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I guess. That's a 52-minute long symphony, no breaks, and it's
Wow.
hard.
Mhm.
It's demanding on the conductor, and
Mhm.
if you show hesitation, the musicians are going to mess up.
Mm.
And you have to just to prepare them. You have to have a plan. We have very limited rehearsal to finish this big symphony, and you just have to be super efficient. And I have to be able to, I had a free weekend last weekend. I spent it all studying Beethoven and figuring
Mm.
out where I think the symphony needs, where they're going to struggle in rehearsal,
Mm.
what stylistically I want to do with different parts. Because I've got to be able to convey that really quickly in rehearsal and not even sequentially all the time. And I've got to be brave enough to not rehearse the stuff that I know the symphony can play well,
Mm.
so that we
Mm.
can get the harder spots done. And so that takes, I think, when you talk about years of experience as a conductor, that's maybe one of the biggest factors, being able to judge the situation and use your very limited rehearsal minutes um, to the utmost and get a group ready. I've always been able to get the group to the prepared stage for performance, and sometimes it's quite a push at the end. And a lot of it has nothing to do with me. We have a culture here in the symphony now where the students do sectionals once a week, meaning if you're a cellist, you rehearse just with the other
Mhm.
cellists for an hour. We split up by instrument, and they do work on their own, sometimes with a professor helping them, helping to guide them. But then I'll also notice as the concert comes, they do whatever they need to do. The older students, they really understand what prepared is for a performance.
Mhm.
And so I will come in, I've come in at odd hours and seen like the horn section working away and
Mhm.
playing that symphony, getting ready for it, and uh, there's a whole realm of, I can't control everything.
Right.
And that's one of the most relieving and freeing aspects of kind of the culture that we have right now in our orchestra. I know that if it comes down to just the rehearsal time I have on the podium, the amount of music we perform and the difficulty of music we perform, it's not going to be done well. But I'm in a position now, we have a culture where I can trust the students to
Mm.
really come through. And that's one of the funnest things to see. We've climbed some amazing mountains together for sure.
Wow. Wow. I love listening to that. And I mean, you definitely hit on these pieces of culture. And as I hear you talk, as someone who is a music lover and music fan, but certainly not a musician in my own right, I can't help but hear about the parallels of just really any organization out there. You talk about the different instruments coming together, much like different departments at a organization come together. And you as a conductor, getting to know your different musicians, getting to know your different people, just like a leader working for Nike needs to get to
Sure.
know their employees. And so, I'd love to know a little bit more about your leadership style of how do you cultivate that trust and build that culture when, especially here in higher education, you have a revolving door of musicians every year, every semester. They're graduating, they're coming in. How do you foster that?
I suppose you can go a lot of directions with that answer, but I'll say one. We have to be so efficient with our rehearsal time that I schedule out down to the minute exactly what we're rehearsing in a given rehearsal. And I say to students, be prepared, don't miss it. But if you're not assigned to a particular piece of music, you don't need to be at rehearsal.
Mm.
And then we also have, you're talking about parallels across the board. I think one of the strengths of our culture right now is we have a lot of students in the orchestra that are involved in student ministry. What's an important value of student ministry at Concordia? Small groups.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
they doing in the orchestra? Small groups. It's a great parallel, so I guess this also helps to answer your question, Ashley, because um, if I if I if I were able to, and I wouldn't be able to at Concordia, but it is this way at some institutions, if I were able to set the culture so that students, their commitment to Concordia was the orchestra. That was their commitment. And you will doggedly practice your instrument and play in the orchestra. Um, does that build a healthy, trusting culture the way our situation does? I don't think so. I think you have to
Mhm.
let go and you have to
Mhm.
trust that your people have passion for what they do, and
Mhm.
you'll see it. And then the leadership underneath the leadership really develops. And
Mhm.
that's what I trust. It took me a long time. I went on sabbatical last semester.
Mhm.
I was like 3 or 4 years overdue. And there
Mm.
were various reasons for me pushing that off. But one was I wanted to make sure the culture of the orchestra was able to go without me.
Mhm.
And I had the ultimate confidence in them last year. And I said, you know, I'll see you in 6 months, be a better orchestra when I get back.
Mm.
And in a lot of ways, they were. And they learned how to do things on their own. And we brought in some very renowned conductors to work with them, which put different kinds of pressure on them. And that's maybe a part of what I have to do as well. I'm one person, and they can get used to my conducting style, my leadership style, my leniency for certain things. Everyone
Mhm.
does it differently,
Right.
but to have to work with someone else for a while,
Mhm.
different people, to have to welcome someone into your culture
Yeah.
and make them feel like they're the leader of the culture. Like we brought in artists in residence, we had some conductors come in. they handled that really well. It was really cool to see and hear about after the fact.
Oh, yeah. What a challenge, but what a growth opportunity for these young musicians.
What was one of the conductors you think really impacted your group?
So one of my, I guess you could say, college conducting model idols, whatever, is Steve Amundsen from St. Olaf University.
Mm.
And I met him when I was in high school at Lutheran Summer Music Academy. He was the conductor, it was my first orchestra experience. A lot of my friends went to St. Olaf and worked under him. He's a legend in his own right, not just for being a brilliant musician, but being a culture builder.
Mm.
He happened to retire a year before I went on sabbatical. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, Steve, I don't know if you remember me." It's kind of one of those. But he's a culture builder. He said, "Oh yeah, of course I do." I said, "How would you feel about coming out to California from Minnesota for a week and doing an intense session with our orchestra and doing a concert?" And he jumped at the opportunity. And I said, "The reason I'm asking you is I feel like we're taking great strides in the level of musicianship and the culture that goes with it."
Mm.
I said, I want them to work with someone who I think has done it amongst the very best in the college world." And
Mm.
he came in and he was so positive and he loved the experience so much. The students treated him like they were his own conductor after about a day. He's that
Mm.
kind of person. And that do I feel threatened by that? No. I think maybe some people would. I don't know, but
Yeah.
um, I was so relieved but overjoyed
Yeah.
that they were getting that experience is exactly what I wanted because it just helps to keep that snowball going that we were talking about.
Yeah. And
I
you
think
said he
there's,
was from Minnesota?
yeah, from St.
Yeah.
Olaf.
Oh, so inviting him in, January or February to Southern
Yeah, that
California
doesn't
probably didn't
hurt.
hurt
Yeah.
either.
That does not hurt. But I think there's something to recognizing what the next thing is that can go and snowball into new things. For us here at Concordia, one of the most famous things we're known for is the PBS show that we do every year. We do a PBS Christmas special made for TV. It's a huge production. It's a huge undertaking. It involves filming a concert, but mostly it involves filming and videoing, 53 minutes of content for PBS. And that came about because we got shut out of Segerstrom Hall at COVID.
Mm.
And I was talking with my colleagues and Bill Hood, who does a lot of outreach for the university. And I don't know who said it first, but it was said, you know, we have mentioned that we'd like to get on PBS. And there are different COVID restrictions for recording artists than there are for regular students. And that kind of got the ball rolling. And we
Mm.
ended up getting PBS involved. They were thrilled to have someone producing something. And we put a good show together that aired locally in Los Angeles. And they liked it so much that the local affiliate said, "We need to push this across the United States." And they helped us pitch it to all the affiliates. And we're in over 75% of the PBS affiliates across the United States. We got that done in 2 years.
Wow.
Mm.
And, it's like if we had just hesitated and said, "Well, we'll see what happens next year," we
Mhm.
wouldn't have that entity going on. We've been doing it every year. We've been generously supported by donors because they see it and love it and want to make it happen. And it's helped raise our stature in different ways. And um, it's always moving forward with something. There's always some option out there that you got to find and do the hard work.
Do the
Yeah,
hard
The
work.
second option is often way harder than the first,
that's true. That's
but
true.
it really can elevate what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think about, PBS. That was a big jump, right, for our school, and I'm glad you all were producing music during COVID, not just Taylor Swift. So that's good to see that we were, up there competing. So, but when you're in that, so we talked a little bit about your role, right? As a leader in a high stress environment, how do you manage? Because, students are students, right? Athletes, musicians, all of them, they probably get a little nervous. How do you keep your team focused and calm, your orchestra focused and calm? They're in something like a Segerstrom or the Nixon Library or anywhere like that.
I read some psychological study some time ago. The basic premise has really stuck with me. Um, it was an organized study, and one of their conclusions was something along the lines of, if you have a leader of a group, the group is going to they're going to reflect your level of anxiety, and that's something I share with my students regularly who are going into music education. One of the things I see with a lot of young music educators, man, there's a lot to think about in a concert well beyond the podium. They've got to make sure the chairs are there, that, there's somebody handing out programs and all this. They've got a million things on their mind, and they've got to take a group of kids and perform publicly. It's putting yourself on the line, right? And it is really easy to show anxiety then. It's really easy to snap at that kid who shows up in white tennis shoes for a, black tie concert,
You've never had that happen, though, I'm sure.
No, never.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've had it happen and I don't even notice because someone will tell me about it, and I'll deal with it for the next concert, because I find that raising issues of conflict like that, you have to pick your battles, but usually areas of conflict like that, they turn into anxiety inducers more than, by you going after someone directly about something, it's solving a problem that's worth solving at the moment. So I really do think that leaders need to, when you're in that pressure situation, it's really important to take your own temperature and keep your cool. And remember to speak slowly, not to snap at someone, even though it's like, this is it, man, we're running out of time and all this is going. Those wheels really can start revving, and you got to keep your cool first. And if you keep your cool, you can go to the students and talk to them and say, man, I'm really nervous about this performance. It's big performance. I know it's tough music. I'm concerned about some of the conducting parts of it. That's not showing anxiety. That's showing honesty,
humility.
but it's showing that you're willing to, that you're ready, that you have, that you're focused, and there are ways you can conduct yourself to help keep your students calm. The other thing is you got to put them in the situation a lot. There's no substitute for being in that nerve-wracking situation. I played trumpet all my life. I have a lot of bad memories playing trumpet where it wasn't just me thinking I sounded terrible. It was one cracked note after another. And
were you wearing white tennis shoes when it
no, I
happened?
was not. I looked good, actually. But no, there's a lot of anxiety in music, a lot of anxiety. And but the more I've played trumpet, now I'm like, I get a little nervous, but it doesn't affect my performance.
Right.
I found playing trumpet to be the thing that induced anxiety in me more than singing a solo, more than giving a speech, more than giving an extemporaneous speech. It's why? It's the thing I cared about the most.
Right.
Yeah.
And what Matthew Syed has a great book called Bounce, which I use in my music appreciation class. And he talks about performance anxiety. Matthew Syed was a world-class table tennis player.
Mm.
And he choked big time in the Olympics. He was England's great hope to get a medal in table tennis.
Well,
Mm.
And
there you go.
he flamed out in the first round, and it led him to a deep study of performance anxiety. And what he said was, um, there are synapses that fire differently in performance, and they make you focus on the simple things that your synapses previously learned automatically. And when
Mm.
that happens, you're in trouble. You
Mm.
have to be able to do certain things automatically. And I can tell you, when I'm sitting there conducting a performance, I'm like turning pages 8 measures earlier than I do in rehearsal. What's going on there? It's that stupid anxiety kicking in,
Mhm.
and I'm
Ah.
thinking, I got to have that next page up, that sort of thing. That's silly. But you have to, it's important to recognize those things and just learn how to regulate that and stay moving along calmly.
Oh man. Well, Jeff, I have to say how I'm sure our listeners here and your students as well, how helpful that is to hear from such a seasoned and experienced professional like you that you still get those feelings or
Yep.
you can still resonate or you can still identify with where your students are when they're feeling that anxiety and to help kind of normalize that for them and just how comforting that might be because so many times you think you grow out of it or you become a professional or an expert and you're not going to have those feelings of nervousness or anxiety, but that's not the truth, right? They still
That's right.
exist.
And there's things you can do. I mean, one of the most important things you can do is go to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, I've read other studies that say your mind is okay if you get like less than 5 hours of sleep on for one night. But if
Yeah.
you do that 2 nights in a row, count on your mental faculty being down by 20% or whatever that means. But um, I find that to be an interesting rule of thumb. I try to
Mm.
tell my students that. I'm sure it goes
Yeah.
in one ear out the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have something big going on tomorrow, like a big performance or a recital, it better not be your second night in a row of getting little sleep.
Right.
That's
It's
just
not it's
not
not
gonna,
five Red Bulls or
it's
five
not gonna
cups of
work.
coffee. It's
That's true
sleep. Yeah.
too. And give yourself time. If you have an evening performance, which most performances are, you have to block off time during the day just to do nothing.
Mm.
And that
Oh.
might
Wow.
mean, for me, like when I do that Beethoven concert, there'll be an evening concert. I'll be thinking of nothing but Beethoven that day.
Mm.
I probably will walk through the park at
Mm.
some point. I probably will go running or something just to get some nervous energy out. I'll
Mhm.
spend most of the day probably studying the score. Um, but I will do nothing for and maybe it's 10 minutes of nothing, but there
Mm.
will be chunks that I do nothing. It just is cleansing for your brain
Yeah.
because that's a snowball effect too. My goodness, you're thinking about that one event, maybe that one piece that you know is going to be the hardest thing, and it's all you think about all day long.
Mm.
By the time you get on stage, you're going to be feeling really unpleasant.
Yeah.
So you got to do some stuff to just some sort of release.
You've talked a lot about your leadership style and what it's like to, um, be the conductor of an orchestra. You speak the same language, so to speak, as many of these musicians. But as you briefly mentioned, you hold another leadership role, not on the HOA anymore, but as assistant dean of our School of Arts and Sciences. And now there are a whole host of departments that fall under the School of Arts and Sciences. So, what is it like to help lead or work with colleagues who are math professors, right? Or faculty in
Mhm.
biology. How does that change your frame of mind, or does it?
Well, I mean, honestly, most of my work now as assistant dean is with music faculty. We have 40 something adjunct faculty. We've got all sorts of, we have performances multiple every week. that's the bulk of my work. But I do, of course, interact quite a bit with people from other departments and such. College professors, there's a lot of similarities amongst us. What I do find is that one of the most important things with college professors is you have to look at all of them to some degree as kind of independent operators. Everyone should at least have their own thing going on that is probably a majority part of what you're doing in your position. But I mean, Eugene Kim, I walked past him the other day in the cafeteria. I didn't know he started an AI institute.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
got that going on, right? I just
Now,
heard
did
that
you
on your
hear about that
podcast.
on our
Yeah,
podcast? See, there we
exactly.
go.
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's super interesting. But everybody's got something going on in music. If I ask Steve Young or Chris Hauser to do something right now, I have to be a little bit patient because they're finishing up production on PBS and finishing writing music and recording and
Mhm.
doing stuff I'm not even doing with that. So there's always that extra thing going on. So I try to be sensitive to that. But at the same time, one of the challenges of working in the college environment is there's committees and there's executive teams, there's all sorts of things that slow walk everything. Nobody
Mm.
means to do it,
Mhm.
but things get extremely slow walked. Something that I think will get done in a month might take 3 years.
Mm.
And the only way for me to get it done in, say, 6 months is for me to be persistently coming back to it.
Mm.
And, I see a path to finishing a project, and I know I can get it done in a month. But just because that path exists, that doesn't mean that that timeline is going to work for everybody. And you've got to just be very persistent and not always allowing that delay, but um, being willing to work within the parameters that you have.
Mm.
Um, I guess it comes down to culture too, building up a trust with people that when push comes to shove, I'm going to get something done for you. As an administrator, I get asked all sorts of questions, and it's usually on email. And either I can stop what I'm doing and take the 1 to 5 minutes to answer it, or I can keep doing what I'm doing and leave them hanging for what could be a week. I've got to make those decisions. I got to remember to come back to things. If I can build up the trust that they're going to get their answer in a timely way, I'm going to get stuff too.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways.
Again, the trust, right? Within your colleagues, within your students. I think that's a great theme. And so you've been doing this for now a few years, Jeff. I mean, you've been, since the first day. It's been a couple of years since you started at OLU, and now you've been here at Concordia for a while. And you've had a lot of different leadership roles. You've seen a lot of different students and things go on. What have you rethought about leadership from when you first started leading?
Um, I would say maybe, well, I think over time you learn how to adapt to different circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess maybe like that PBS example, there's always a second option, and it might be the better result, but the second option takes more work. But another thing is sometimes your first choice of an outcome, it's not what is absolutely needed in a situation.
Oh, that's hard as a leader to
Well, I
realize
mean,
that.
and
Yeah.
my style, which I get dinged on once in a while from my colleagues, but I know to get stuff done, I have to put things in writing. You can talk in circles about a project. Once somebody puts something in writing, it starts to feel real. And then if somebody doesn't like something about it, you're going to hear about it immediately.
Yes.
Um, what I try to share with all my colleagues is just because I put it in writing for the first time, it doesn't mean I'm committed to that outcome.
Mhm.
That's what I'm getting at. Um, you have to you have to help guide towards an outcome, but just because you think things are going to go one way, it doesn't mean that's the best way they're going to go. No matter how much you may have researched something way more than everybody else in the room, but circumstances are circumstances, and it's not always what you think is gonna, the outcome isn't always what you predetermine.
Well, before you leave us here today, we would love to know what's another takeaway tip you have for our listeners today? A little extra snowball for them to go home with.
Well, do hard things.
Thanks.
We're inundated with, we can spend every minute of every day having lots of fun and lots of satisfaction and not really accomplish anything. There's just so much out there, whether it's on your cell phone or your family even, that you can hang out with, your friends to hang out with. That's what I'm getting at. There's all sorts of fun things you can do. But are you doing something hard every day that build, here we go, snowball again, Ashlie, that builds from one day to the next? Are you taking on a difficult task? I have the utmost of respect for musicians, instrumentalists, because I know that it takes years to be able to play a Beethoven symphony. And that has only a portion of the success of that comes in rehearsal. They're able to do it because they practice at home on their own. And practicing at home, it's generally not fun. If you do what your teacher tells you to do, I'm a trumpet player. If I do what my teacher tells me to do, or did, I would play all sorts of super boring, slow exercises every single day. Long tones, they're called in the brass world. That's how you develop and build your sound as a brass instrumentalist. You know what? It kind of sucks. And you sit there and do it every day, and you could just as easily be scrolling through TikTok laughing at something. But my goodness gracious, those hard things, eventually, they put you in a moment where you're going to feel pressure, you're going to feel anxiety, but what are you going to also feel? Immense reward.
Yeah.
Man, those concerts, I've had some concerts with my students where I'm holding back tears in the middle of conducting. I'm seeing them crying while they're playing, just because it's so stinking beautiful. It's amazing. And this great sense of pride in pulling off something really, really hard that moved the audience and gets a huge ovation. One of those, there's different ovations out there, and we kind of know what they are as musicians. There's that your parents appreciate you ovation, which is awesome, and it's one of the best ones because everyone wants to play for their parents.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's also that music critic, like someone who goes to a lot of concerts and knows what the piece should sound like and is able to point out all your flaws when they're really digging in and they're super enthusiastic about it. There's really something about that. It's amazing.
Wow.
But ultimately, here's the last thing maybe. We didn't really get into this much on this podcast, if at all. But one of the great things we have in music is we have a closeness to God with it. It's a gift from God. And he put it on this earth. He put it in our minds to create so that we can create beautiful things that lead us to the gospel, that help us to even just reflect on the world around us and the world he created. And that is the ultimate audience right there. And Bach always said, or Bach always wrote the initials SDG at the end of his scores, whether it was a sacred piece or a secular piece. And that stands for Soli Deo Gloria, to God alone be the glory. He always had that in his mind. He was a great model for us musicians.
Wow, that's beautiful, Jeff. We just appreciate that so much. And to those listeners who haven't been privileged enough to listen to the PBS specials, the Concordia Christmases that have been aired, you can still find them online, pbs.org. We'll be sure to link that in our episode notes. Do yourself and your family some favor and listen to that God-given talent by these musicians, because
we have those up at cui.edu/Christmas. You can still see them. Yeah.
There we go. The last 4 years, and we're looking forward to the 5th. So
we're in the process of recording it right now.
There we go. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. We appreciate it so much. You're just such a blessing to us.
It's my pleasure. Look forward to seeing you both again soon.
All right. See you, Jeff.
All right. Thanks.
If you enjoy the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.